Breath of the Wild is known to have the least story of any Zelda game. Well, 3D Zelda game at least. The game tells the story in a lot of really unique ways, relying heavily on memories, flashbacks, and the player's imagination to tell what happened 100 years before. While this isn't necessarily a bad thing, it leaves a bunch of questions unanswered. One of the biggest of these questions is the identity of the fortune teller that foretold Ganon's return. Well, in today's video, I'm going to attempt to answer this question along with the one and only Hyrule Gamer. I'm super excited that he was able to join me for this video. This is probably my favorite script I've ever written, and I'm super excited to share it with you guys. So now, without further ado, let us tell you the tale of how Hyrule fell prey to a misunderstood prophecy.
Almost immediately after starting a new game in Breath of the Wild, you will find an old man chilling by a campfire. You meet him a couple times after that. After completing the first 4 shrines for him in order to get his paraglider, he reveals himself to in fact be King Roham. The king then proceeds to tell you the story of what happened before and during the Great Calamity. We learn the reason they started excavating the Guardians was because a fortune teller informed them that the Great Calamity was coming. However, despite this person's very obvious importance, as the King of Hyrule was willing to listen to them, we barely hear anything about them. The only other info we get comes from the king's diary, and that basically says the same thing. People have suggested many options for who it might be. That it was the Queen, that it was a random person that no one knew, even that it was a Yiga spy trying to get them to lose to Ganon. They obviously had to have some relationship with the royal family, if the King of Hyrule was so willing to listen to that big of a prophecy. I mean, they said that the only way to defeat Calamity Ganon was to unearth the Guardians and Divine Beasts, just like in ancient times. Well, not exactly. Actually, their exact words were, as spoken by the King of Hyrule,
"The signs of a resurrection of Calamity Ganon are clear, and the power to oppose it lies dormant beneath the ground."
However, it never directly mentions the Guardians.
The royal family immediately began the excavations, and if we look at the king's diary, we see that reports keep arriving regarding the excavation of relics. The fortune teller's predictions seem to be coming true, so things seem to be going well. But immediately after we read that, we learn that the queen dies. Coincidence? I think not. Now you may be wondering what the two events have in common. Well, like we said earlier, people think that the queen may have been the fortune teller, and I myself am one of those people. However, if this was the case, then why wouldn't the king refer to her as the queen when referring to her as the fortune teller? What reason would he possibly have to be so distant when referring to her? Well, it seems likely that the king would have wanted to keep her identity secret. We know that the Yiga are servants of Ganon, and are very active in roaming around Hyrule. If they knew that the queen was telling the people how to stop Calamity Ganon, then it's likely they would have planned an assassination attempt. We know they are willing to assassinate members of the royal family, as they attempt to do so in Urbosa's cutscene of the Champion's Ballad. It's ironic though, because despite the king's attempts at secrecy, it appears that the information was leaked anyhow, and the queen dies. While it's never said in-game how she died, the king's diary does state that it was sudden. Considering Zelda was only 6 at the time, the queen would have likely been fairly young, so health-related issues such as heart failure seem unlikely. And since it was considered sudden, it's unlikely that she died from an illness, leaving the most likely option to be murder. However, the reason that Ganon would have wanted the queen dead is not for the reason you would think. It's actually likely that Ganon would have wanted the Guardians to be dug up so that he could take them over. In fact, he may have already been planning on using them, regardless if the Hylians excavated them or not. Remember, the pillars containing the Guardians would have still risen, and Ganon could have used them in his army. But if he wanted them to be excavated, then why would he have had the queen murdered?
Now, this is what the theory has been leading up to this whole time. The reason that he wanted the queen murdered is because he had a deeper, darker secret that he didn't want anyone figuring out. The secret? His tomb. Remember how we said that the fortune teller never mentioned the Guardians? That's because she didn't mean the Guardians. I believe that she was actually referring to Ganondorf's tomb, and more specifically, the green hand that we see in the sequel's trailer. Now, it's likely that her clairvoyance has a limit, because she didn't directly say when Calamity Ganon would come or what exactly underground was referring to. If she had another bout of prophecy though, and told the king the Guardians weren't what they wanted, then Ganon's whole plan could be defeated. It was a safer bet to have her removed before she could do anything further to stop him. That's why we see the excavation of relics and the Queen's death occur one after the other in the King's Diary. That takes us to the end of this Fury's arc. Breath of the Wild sequel. In the trailer, we can see Link and Zelda exploring in a cave deep underground. I think that it is probable that they realised what they did wrong in the first game, and were attempting to fix it by doing what they were supposed to have done from the beginning. Beyond that, Zelda has now unlocked her sealing powers, and so she likely had a lot of the same abilities as her mother, and could have received a prophecy of her own. Obviously, however, they messed something up, and that is what leads to the events of Breath of the Wild 2. And that, my friends, is the story of how Hyrule fell prey to a misunderstood prophecy.
Thanks so much if you made it to the end. All the recent support I've gotten has been super great. So what do you guys think? Do you agree with this theory, or do you have an alternate one that can explain these events better? If you enjoyed the video, then be sure to like and subscribe. Also, I have an Instagram and Twitter, which will be linked in the description, so be sure to follow me there. Again, thanks to Hyrule Gamer for joining me in this video. I honestly couldn't be more grateful for his help. If for some reason you don't know his channel, then be sure to go check him out. I'll have his channel in the description as well. Anyways, until next time, I've been Triforce Truths, and I'm out.